An honour to follow Colin King with that authoritative ending to his speech there. And it is the case that I think both sides of the House agree that this bill should not be proceeding. And obviously, as the Select Committee itself noted, it shouldn't be proceeding because the Auckland Transitional Provisions Act has superseded it. And obviously, Mr Speaker, it's important to reflect on the process by which that Act, the Auckland Transitional Provisions Act, came into being while reflecting on this bill, because we have to have set that context. And I think it's worth noting, firstly, the excellent work that the Select Committee did on this bill. And wouldn't it have been good if all of the legislation regarding the change to Auckland governance had found its way to a Select Committee, Mr Speaker? Because perhaps if that had happened, the people of Auckland might have had a true opportunity to be listened to. Because what we've seen with the change in Auckland governance, Mr Speaker, is the activities of one minister, Rodney Hyde, the tail wagging the dog of the National Party. And now perhaps the National Party might be looking across at Rodney Hyde, the minister responsible for the legislation that has superseded this bill, and saying, do we really want to be associated with that man? Do we really want the public of New Zealand to think that Rodney Hyde is leading the strategy for the National Party for our biggest city, for the biggest change in local government in New Zealand history, or certainly since the 1989 reforms? Do we really want the National Party to be led by Rodney Hyde, a man whose credibility has been destroyed, a man who has covered up the most despicable of acts, and as a minister has now no credibility to be leading a process, Mr Speaker, that this bill has now been superseded by? And the National Party really have to ask themselves that question, because Rodney Hyde has clearly got it wrong in Auckland, and my colleague Phil Twyford has talked about that. Of course there was a need for change in Auckland governance. Of course there was a need to be able to bring together the people of the Greater Auckland region in a way that would benefit things like transport, that would benefit those issues that cut across different parts of the city. But, Mr Speaker, the way that the National Party have put forward the reforms to Auckland governance has been unacceptable. It has overridden democracy. They have put in place people that are going to enforce the agenda of Rodney Hyde and others into vitally important organisations. And Mr Speaker, I think it's true to say that when we look at this bill, which refers in particular to the Auckland War Memorial Museum and the the Museum of Transport and Technology, I wonder one day, Mr Speaker, if at MOTAT, part of the computer system, the $62 million computer system that the Auckland Super City is putting in place, might find itself one day. And when people look at that, when they go and visit MOTAT, they will be saying, gosh, $62 million, that was a lot of money to spend on a computer system. It's unbelievable that it didn't go out to tender. It's absolutely incredible that a project as important as that, as important for Auckland and its future, did not go out to tender. And once again, that is an example of the way in which the process of the Auckland governance reforms that have superseded this bill have been railroaded through, have not been subject to due process, and in fact are a black mark on this government, and they do need to reconsider, Mr Speaker, whether or not it's appropriate that those reforms continue in this way. One of the interesting aspects of this bill, Mr Speaker, is it cuts to the question around regional amenities. And obviously the people of Auckland, the people of Franklin have had some difficulty ironing out exactly where the boundaries lay, and that obviously was the reason why this bill came forward. And I speak here as a member representing the Wellington region to say that this is an issue that is certainly vexing many of the councils in this area. And the Wellington City Council, which oversees a number of excellent facilities in the region, has been looking towards other councils to say, well, can we sustain these facilities without the support of people in the region? And as we know, the Auckland War Memorial Museum and MOTAT are visited by people from the Franklin area. They're visited by people from a number of other regions nearby. And the question automatically arises, what should be done about that? Now, in Auckland, the Regional Amenities Act was passed and enables the Auckland region to look at things on a regional basis. And as a Wellington member, I'm certainly well disposed to the idea of something similar to that happening here in Wellington. Obviously in Wellington we have a great deal of important artistic and cultural institutions, Te Papa, the Festival of the Arts, the National Opera, the Ballet, the Symphony Orchestra, the Schools of Dance and Music. These are all vitally important parts of our cultural infrastructure here in the Wellington region. And in order for them to be sustainable, and quite frankly, Mr Speaker, in order for people in Wellington to look and say, well, we now have this very powerful entity in Auckland, will we be able to continue to hold on to these regional amenities here in the Wellington region? And I think the answer is we obviously want to, and we obviously need to make sure that the whole region can in fact look towards cooperating on that. So I look forward to the end of the local body election season, and then we'll be able to find out who is representing those Wellington councils, and certainly as a Wellington MP I'll be wanting to work with them on that. But Mr Speaker, this bill has indeed been superseded by the process that has gone on in Auckland. From the point of view of the Labor government, that process has not been acceptable. It's not been democratic. It has shown up the government in a very poor light, and their connection with the ACT leader Rodney Hyde in this regard is something that the people of Franklin, I'm sure, will remember, and the people of Auckland generally will remember. So while this bill will be discharged, Mr Speaker, tonight after the second reading, it's fair to say that what it does is that it reminds us of the stain on this Parliament, of the way in which the National ACT government have forced on the people of Auckland a structure and a process that they have not had a proper say in. They lost a great opportunity, Mr Speaker, to put in place a truly democratic Auckland governance structure that could have gotten over some of the problems that have bedevilled Auckland for many years, but still kept a democratic process in place. And Mr Speaker, that is something that Parliament needs to reflect on very seriously as this bill is discharged.
Call Louise up.